Hello everyone, welcome back to the Tech Sharmit podcast. Today I am honored to introduce Magie Hall, a tenured professor and a prominent mainframe researcher joining us from United States of America. In this industry, Maggie is known as someone who is the one of the top influential mainframer and as a person who is always at the forefront for sharing knowledge and the support to the tech experts. So, today in this episode, we are going to talk about Maggie's remarkable journey at the intersection of technology and society. But before that, I would like to thank Maggie for joining us today in this episode. And now I request you to please initiate the discussion by telling us something about yourself.
Hi, and thank you. I really appreciate the invitation. Oh, wow. What do I say about me? I say I am absolutely flattered and honored to be included in the good company of the most influential mainframers. That's nothing I expected. So very, very kind and from the community. Yeah, I am a tenured professor at the University of Nebraska in Omaha. We work in the intersection of technology, society, and people. And I run a project that tries to upskill vulnerable adults into mainframe and enterprise computing careers, which is how I started in this space.
Okay. So, like Maggie, you are one of the very few tenured professor doing scholarly work in mainframe education. So, can you tell us like how you first got interested into the mainframe systems and what do you to focus research and teaching in this particular area?
Yeah, it is frightening that there are so few faculty who are really active in this space. I wish I could fix that with just like a snap, but it's just so hard. So my interest actually didn't start in the mainframe, which is very kind of funny. I am somebody who is always curious about how people, society, and technology intersect, right? And a colleague of mine and I were sitting one night drinking way too much wine, and we're trying to figure out why online education doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Because it should work, right? It's high quality classes, low to no cost, on your own schedule from some of the world's premier institutions. It should work, right?
Yes.
It doesn't. Maybe between 2 and 10% of people who start a class will graduate from that class. And that is, and if I were a business and I said 2 to 10% of the time I'm successful, I think we would all say that's a failure. But for some reason, because it's education, we seem to be okay with going forward with that as a status quo. And that was exactly what we were talking about. And we figured out that there could be a couple of different types of problems. One of them could be if people are or aren't getting credentialed properly. One of them can be that people do not have the ability to give their human resources to the effort, right? So I want to be a computer programmer, but I need to drive for Uber. I need to deliver the mail so that I can eat this week. And there are a couple of other sort of ancillary problems that we figured out. So this developed into an idea. And I was doing interviews with local industries here in Omaha, Nebraska, asking, okay, if you were going to hire someone that has an unusual background,
Okay.
what skills would they need to have for you to be willing to overlook that? And again and again and again, it came back the same. Doesn't matter what sector, transportation, railroad, credit card processing, the state of Nebraska. It was COBOL every single time.
Yep.
So, okay, great. I didn't know COBOL at that point, and this is maybe 10 years ago at this point. But it was consistent enough that I really needed to pay attention, and that's exactly what I did. So I worked through a couple of iterations of grant proposals. We eventually won two, one from Facebook Research at the time, now Meta, one from the National Science Foundation, which is running through the end of the summer. And we partner with a homeless shelter here in the state. Actually, specifically, we're working in the addiction recovery shelter, so where people live
Okay.
full time while they're recovering from addiction troubles. And we offer classes in enterprise computing. So first we teach them how computers do what they do, so computational thinking. We give them a crash course in Python because it's kind of necessary at this point. And then
Yes.
we work through concepts around COBOL, mainframe computing, enterprise computing. And if they persist through the entire program, they earn up to $1,000. So we
Yeah.
pay them to learn. It's a little bit of a reverse of the credential problem, right? Normally you pay to get a
Get the
credential.
work.
We're
Yeah.
going the other way around. And we've been running this program now for almost 2 years. And it's been really, really interesting, really, really fun. The opportunity level for these students, even if they don't want to be a mainframe programmer, just learning how technology works at the back end has been eye-opening for many of them. And that brought me into the mainframe space. My first big contact was Cameron Say. So he helped
Cameron
me with
say.
the education. Everyone loves Cam, right?
Yes.
And working with Cameron, Jeffrey Decker is also on that Emma project, which is really closely related to the work we're doing here in Nebraska. I work with Laura Sherwin over in Sono.
Mm-hmm.
Had really great support from IBM, of course. You can't not talk about IBM at this point. And yeah, that's the program that I run. Based on the success of it, based on the interest from community, University of Nebraska actually reintroduced COBOL as a course for the first time in 25 years. So that just
Yeah.
concluded in the spring. So that was a lot of fun. We had 20 something students in the class. It was oversubscribed. We actually had a waiting list for the class. It was that interesting for students. And out of that 27 of them got hiring offers directly before the end of the
Okay.
semester. So it was really successful, and we're really proud of what happened there.
Yeah, and like you guys are really doing a great work because you're not only supporting them for starting their career into industry, but you are also helping them to come out of those kind of addiction which they are suffering. And fortunately, I also got a chance to interact with Cameron Say through this podcast also, and I have particularly witnessed like how he is contributing for the community, and like he's also helping the students to learn and to start their career into industry, particularly in mainframe systems. So huge shout out to both of you for your great work.
Yeah, absolutely. Go listen to Cam's podcast directly and immediately after this one. But also, hi, Cam. Let me make a plug for the Emma program. So, the Emma program is something that spun off fairly recently. And he is taking sort of the best lessons that we were able to provide out of our pilot program and putting them into a large scale learning. So it's been really cool watching this develop and spin off. And he is really getting out there and getting people jobs and getting people excited about the sector. So all the work and all roads lead to Cam, right?
Yes. Uh, Okay. So, Maggie, like you have also worked with the UN and multinational organization before this academia. So, how did those early days experiences shape your academic focus today in your recent role?
So my dirty secret is I didn't start out in computing.
Okay.
I did a bachelor's and a master's both in international relations, and I wanted to be a humanitarian worker. I wanted to actually, very specifically, when I was graduating with my master's, I really wanted to go to South Sudan, which was just becoming a country right when I was graduating. And I applied to everything, and no one would take me. So then I started applying around in other fields, other positions. I did my master's in Switzerland, so I was sitting in the middle of Europe. And the first person that said yes was my PhD advisor, who was able to get me a PhD in information systems. So really, really different. And what I brought with me from this just difference is that I think my first my first concern, my first unit of analysis is always people. And you can't come from time at the UN. So I spent a little bit of time with an office that does sort of governance, and then I spent a little bit of time with the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. you can't do those jobs without caring about people, right? It's got to be people first. And with my background, with my work experience, I brought that through to my PhD pretty directly. And I think that the types of work that I do, the type of projects that I do also show that out pretty strongly. And it's always, how does this work for people?
Yes. And like with your so far experience, I can see that you have worked along different countries like US, Lebanon, Switzerland, and Australia as well. So how has that global perspective influenced your research and teaching line?
Austria, so Bach, not kangaroos,
Okay.
something they
Austria.
like to say. Yeah, it's true. In some ways, being a global professional has given me something that I can give students a little bit differently than somebody who's only been in their own space. But
Mhm.
one of the one of the things that I notice is that most of the time people are pretty the same. So there are
Okay.
obviously different things about culture, and there are obviously different things about sort of how society is structured. Lebanon is different than the United States. It really is. But people at a general level, they're kind of the same. We kind of want the same things. We want to do well. We want to support ourselves. We want to support our family. We want to have a good time. We want to live comfortably, right? And that given the conditions that we are in. So, having that and being able to pin that in, what would it be like if I moved to Switzerland for my job? Well, dear student, in some ways, you'll just do your job. In some ways, it's going to be really different because the Swiss are this way, this way, this way. So that I think is what helps me out the most there.
Okay. And did you face any kind of challenges while adopting these kind of cultural differences? Because working in different countries is not that easy for everyone. So did you get any challenges, or was it a smooth transition for you at that time?
A lot of the countries that I've been in have been German speaking, and that is its own thing, right? Germans are really direct, and Germans are sort of impersonal in a lot of ways, and that's kind of every way you wouldn't describe an American. So in some ways, that was something to get around or to adopt. Um, what I found is that it changed me more than anything else. So my students here in this Nebraska, which is known for being sort of a nice place, we're very passive, we're very quiet, we're very nice. And my students find me so brutally direct here that it's almost a running joke.
Okay. All right. So, if we talk about your expertise, then you employ a mixed method approach, including HCI and simulation and network analysis. So, how do you decide which method are right for a particular research or question? I'm sure like it is totally depend on the research work also, but any other tactics or any other thing that you consider while selecting any of the methods?
Yeah, it always depends on how am I going to best represent this data. So given the
Hmm.
question that I have, like what is wrong with online education? Okay, so what data do I need to answer that question? Obviously, I need some people. I need them taking some courses. So I need some score data. I need, an working internet, things like that. So how am I going to best access that data? Are people successful in a mainframe course? Well, then I need mainframe content. And if I need mainframe, I also need COBOL content. So
Yes.
what does that look like if I want to turn those needs into data? And then once I know what the data is or what kind of forms the data can take, then what's the best representation of it? What's closest to
Hmm.
the actual phenomena? And that is the way that I decide my method. In some ways, I'm a little bit of a weirdo as an academic. A lot of academics really like to pick a small set of things and really just stick in with those. So I do network analysis, I do data analytics, I do. I'm a little bit broader in that way. I try to always best represent the phenomena, which means that I have to be a lot broader. So when I'm working in social media, that's going to be network analytics. That's going to be, large scale data modeling. When I'm working with humans, like I do in the Mainframe project, in the COBOL project, but I've got to work with interviews and I've got to work with course analytics and I've got to work with things that are just fundamentally different there. And if I can't do that, then I can't do this work.
Okay. So, like, I just would like to know more about your the contribution of social media in your research. So, what do you think? Like, what role does social media data really play into your research work, especially when you are exploring human behavior and social trends in the work?
I started my PhD in the sort of dawning of the social media era. So some of the big papers on social media hadn't yet hit. Facebook research didn't exist yet as a formal institution.
Mm-hmm.
And during the time of my doctoral work is when it really started taking off. And I think you got to remember back 10 years ago, we weren't thinking about how what we commit into social platforms is
Mm-hmm.
turned into data. We hadn't yet had conversations around behavioral surplus, which is, the patterns that exist given the transactions that we're doing. And it was all pretty new and exciting then. It's a dirty secret of mine that I love Facebook. Facebook was the platform I based my dissertation on.
Okay.
I'm so sad to see that it has turned into a leading provider of slop. Very sad. But it is an exemplar platform because people can, in their digital selves, really live on that platform. You can connect to all types and different types of social interactions. So your mom can be on there, but also the person you went to kindergarten with, right? And
Yes.
anyone in between. You can shop on Facebook. You can have emotions on Facebook. You can travel on Facebook. The range of activity that you can do can really very nearly mimic what you do in your just day-to-day life. And all of that is data if you know how to connect it. And that's what's called behavioral surplus. So it's fascinating, right? And it's a pretty complete picture of you. And that's where social mining and social media data became interesting for me because what my dissertation was about was how do we measure unobtrusively, so without asking people, how
Mm-hmm.
happy they are, how well they're feeling about their lives.
Okay.
And we wanted to do this because Germany has a little bit of a different system for ranking its Ivy League equivalent to as in the United States. And it's called the Excellence Initiative. The Excellence Initiative is large scale federal funding tied to research areas, but not specific projects,
Mm-hmm.
in order to make their research portfolio more competitive. And it's really millions of multi-million euro projects, large scale
Okay.
projects. And we had just lost at my university some of our excellence funding. So we were worried as a campus, like, are students unhappy? Are they going to, start going to competitor universities? How are they doing? But you can't ask, 25,000 students.
Yes.
It's just not possible. So that was our interest. Can we figure out how they're doing, but without asking them? So that's what my dissertation or my doctoral work was in. And Facebook is an answer. Yeah, it turns out you really can do that type of work just by the traces that people leave of themselves online.
Okay. All right. And Maggie, let's say, as an expert, if someone asks you, like, what are the biggest challenges in designing the system that encourage meaningful civic and public participation? So, what would you suggest? Like, what are the things or that can be considered as a challenges or pitfalls for the industry?
Well, I think some of the challenges are people themselves.
Okay.
Like, we're the problem in a lot of ways. In English, for example, there are more positive words, but we use negative words more frequently.
Okay.
And that means that we're committing negative things into digital spaces. When I post about something, when I tweet, what is tweeting called now? I have no idea. When we do these things, right, even though we have the access to a much broader vocabulary of ways to express ourselves positively, we opt to express ourselves negatively, and then we push that out into the network. One of the really big studies, one of the first big studies that Facebook had done was a little bit of an ethical nightmare because they they were changing people's emotions without telling them. But it was a really interesting study in that they found the ways that using different types of words changes people's emotions, makes them happier, makes them sadder. Uh, um, so, in some ways, we're the first problem. We have to be willing to engage in those positive spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we need to help us, because we are as humans really just interested in that next click, we
Yeah.
need our platforms to be willing to support positive engagement. So the currency of a social platform is your attention. The attention comes faster and easier with negativity spiking, right? You want to see something that outrages you. You want to keep clicking on something, right? That's a familiar feeling. Another thing that's wrong with online education, right? We don't have spikes of emotion, so no one sticks with it. Uh, Just platforms have to be willing to say they're willing to invest in different types of emotional engagements too, right? It can't just always be the negative things that keep you clicking. And we don't have platforms that are necessarily all that interested in that. Some of
Yes.
the solutions that have come up, like Blue Sky, they are working on decentralizing so that each community can do what it wants. And that's kind of an interesting way to do it. So if I want to be negative, I'll join a negative community. If I want to be positive, I join a positive community. But it hasn't really been solved yet.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm also agree with this point that sometime we are the like we ourselves create some problems and scenarios, and same goes with mainframe also, because still like as we tried our best, but still there are some people who believe that mainframe is about to die and it is not long no longer in use. But yeah, like this is a problem that we created by our own, right? Because we all know that every platform is utilizing it. In fact, most of the transactions are performed on the basis of mainframe system also. So as an expert, like how you would like to debunk this kind of myth moving around the mainframes?
I did a paper, like a one pager with the COBOL working group a couple years back,
Okay.
and we surveyed members of the group to say, what are the most common misperceptions that you hear of? And it has things to do with COBOL is dead, COBOL's a bad
Yes.
career choice, right? All of these negative things on COBOL. And the sad truth is we had an easy way to rebut each of those points, but the message doesn't get down to, say, undergrads who
Yeah.
are the ones that are super interesting for industry. An undergrad that would be able to modernize would be so valuable, right? So
Yes.
valuable, but they don't know the mainframe stacks. They only know the more modern languages, we'll call them. And so, in that way, you know, we have the information, we have the strong attributes of COBOL being such a good career choice in terms of what you need to learn to make yourself unique. It's always a good choice to have specialized skills in a niche field, especially if it's a business critical area. We just aren't getting the message through to all of the right actors.
Okay. All right. So, another thing, Maggie, like your work has been featured in top tier conferences and journals like CHI and ICIS. So, which of your published paper do you think has had the most real world impact? I'm sure like each and every paper has some meaningful impact in the industry, but the one which is very close to your heart.
Yeah, I think my favorite work that I had done was with a group of colleagues. So one of them was the one that I had this initial wine fueled conversation about what's wrong with education or online education. And we did a series of experiments to try to find out what kind of quality control do you need in order to improve the work of crowd workers. So a
Okay.
crowd worker is somebody who does a micro task and gets a small amount of payment and then rolls on and does the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of trouble with trusted transactions in that space. You could imagine people sit there as armies sharing answers with each other, just trying to get through those small payments so that it adds up to something that was worth their time. So, what is the amount of quality control that you need in order for industries to have high quality responses and workers to get high quality payments? It turns out you need something, but it doesn't matter what it is. As soon as you put quality control mechanisms in place, what we call deliberate non-performers, so people who are just trying to task through,
Mhm.
will always self-select not to do that topic. And
Okay.
people who are diligent but struggling will work on it. And so that points to a really interesting thing. People who are diligent but struggling will keep working. Okay, what does someone who's diligent but struggling need? They need support, they need help. And if you can pay them while you're getting that help, right, paying to learn, you see the daisy chain now, then you've got something that's valuable for you because you're getting the work that you want, and you get something that's valuable for them because their time is being reimbursed, they're gaining expertise, so they're always going to be better at the thing that they do, or they're trying. And that's exactly who you want, somebody who maybe doesn't have it at the first time, but is willing to put in the work to do it. And I
Okay.
love that paper. It doesn't matter how complex your quality control is. It can be simple checks, and you will get the people that you want to do your work.
Mhm. Okay. So, Maggie, like, although we have plenty of things that we can discuss, in fact, regarding the mainframe only, but we have limited time. So, just I would like to ask my last question, and it is related to the support network, because we all know that as a professor you have touched so many lives of student by contributing in their career and by helping them, but we just wanted to know, like, who are those key people around you who have helped you in your journey, maybe as a mentor, as a friend, family member, or in fact as a student as well.
Yeah, yeah. I hmm, it's an interesting batch. So I would think the first person who's most influential in my career was actually my postdoc,
Okay.
which is the person that's in between you and your professor in a research lab, basically. And my postdoc, I couldn't be where I'm at, and I would not be where I'm at without my postdoc. His name's Simon Caton. He's a faculty at Ireland University College Dublin right now.
Okay.
He was there just every single day, checking in. What do you think about this? How's this going? You could change it in this way. Let me spin up that code for you because I'm way faster at this.
Okay.
He was definitely pivotal just to get me fully on board and seeing what my options were. Uh, Marcus Kreise is the colleague that I had this great sort of deep conversation with online education, and it really did change the trajectory of my research in a significant way. He's at Google now, and without his just blaze of intuition that something's broken here, I don't think I would be in this space at all. Um, I've had some really great students that are now colleagues. Jorge Grimaldo is here in Omaha. He was an undergrad that I picked up and started mentoring, and he's spun off and done amazing things. He teaches Spanish speaking individuals the basics of computing so that
Okay.
they're able to get access to education, right? So I think one of the things that you do is really great is that your online materials are in Hindi as well as in English. It's so necessary, right? Because sometimes you just want to work in your own language. Spanish language systems like that, like boot camps or introductory things, much less accessible in the United States than they should be, even given how many people speak Spanish as a first language. So he took that on himself and just ran with it, right? He had support from Facebook for a while. It's impressive to see how he's grown. Yeah. My husband, of course, we did our PhDs together, so that helped a lot. You always
Okay.
have someone who knows what you're going through when you've got a colleague as a spouse. Uh, yeah, absolutely. Uh, Almost too many people to be able to really address.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much, Maggie, for joining us in this episode and for sharing so much information regarding the mainframe system and about your work. And also thank you for contributing a lot for this industry, specifically for the mainframe industry. And your work is really very appreciated. So thank you once again for being at the part of the show.
No, thank you for hosting and thank you for the work you do. Right, we need all of the outreach, all of the education that we possibly can.
Thank you.